on 90.9 FM KSJE Farmington.
Hey everyone, it's your host for the World Beat Show, Scott Duran, and I want you to join me every Saturday at 11 a.m., where I take you on a journey around the world and show you traditional and modern style world beat music. Music from Africa, Spain, France, Japan, China, heck, even songs and artists from the United States itself. So join me every Saturday at 11 a.m. only on the KSJE 90.9 FM.
KSJE is supported by San Juan Regional Medical Center, here to meet your urgent and emergent medical needs, whether they are COVID-19 related or not. Medical emergencies happen when you least expect them, whether it's a stroke, heart attack, illness, or injury. San Juan Regional Medical Center's caregivers are here to provide care to you and your loved ones. Find out more online at sanjuanregional.com. Eleven minutes past 8 o'clock. It is Thursday morning, October 15th. Good morning, everybody. I'm Scott Michlin, and thank you for tuning in to KSJE 90.9 FM, over the air, of course, in San Juan County, 103.3 FM if you're listening in the Durango, Colorado area, and, of course, streaming everywhere from our website at ksje.com. Welcome also to our viewers who are watching this visual radio program this morning, streaming live to the KSJE YouTube channel, our Facebook page, and this morning, through the miracle of technology, our Twitter account. We're glad that you are with us, everyone, because coming up in the next few moments, we are going to have one final show about the 2020 census today. And the reason is the census is wrapping up today. Today is the day. You literally have minutes left to take part in the 2020 census, but we'll talk more about the impact the census will have for the next 10 years here in New Mexico, in San Juan County, with my guests who are standing by. So stay tuned for that, everyone. That's in the next few moments right here on KSJE. Next hour, of course, 9 a.m., it's our streaming COVID-19 community information program, streaming live to YouTube and Facebook today, and probably Twitter as well. We'll be getting an update from the New Mexico Activities Association this morning about athletics, which of course have changed yet again, and we'll also be talking to a local pediatrician about some of the effects COVID and children are dealing with, and much, much more. That is coming up, of course, live on YouTube and Facebook at 9. A rebroadcast, of course, on our partner radio station, KNMI, at noon today, and on KSJE this afternoon at 5:06 p.m., so you can listen to it then. Then Mick Hess will be on the radio at 9, roving with the arts, and Mick is featuring music from Beethoven this morning on his program, string quartets from Beethoven on Roving with the Arts at 9:06 on KSJE. We remind you, of course, you can connect with us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and also, if you're an Instagram person, check us out on Instagram as well. Our weather forecast, another sunny and breezy day across the region. Today's high 75 degrees. We could see some more wind gusts this afternoon, up to 35 miles per hour. Clear overnight with a low of 36. Sunny and 70 tomorrow, back into the mid-70s on Saturday, 77 with a high for a high on Sunday. Sunshine and 77 again on Monday, and again mid-70s for early next week, with overnight lows in the mid-30s. Well, let me turn to my guests who are here with me this morning to talk a little bit about the 2020 census. The head of the San Juan County Counts Committee, Devin Neely, is here from San Juan County. Good morning.
Good morning, Scott. Thanks for having us.
You bet. Good to have you back. Thank you for being here today on the wrap-up day.
Yep. The last day, we're in around under 15 hours now left in the 2020 census.
But who's counting?
Yeah.
I guess you're counting. I guess it's you.
Here's the thing. We've got to do the counting.
Yes.
The people, the time.
You really are keeping track of these things.
Absolutely. That's what I'm here for.
Very good.
That is why they put me in charge.
Perfect. Well, I can't think of anyone better to be in charge of numbers than you, because you've been counting for a long time and putting this whole committee together to get the word out about the count, and we'll look at some numbers and see how we're doing here in just a moment. Also joining us here in the studio is from the San Juan United Way. Cathryn Abeyta is here, the Executive Director. Good morning. Thank you for coming in.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
You as well.
And Jennifer Johnson from the United Way is also with us this morning. Good morning to you.
Thank you. Good morning, Scott.
Good to see you both, because I know the census has big impacts on programs and nonprofits in our community and means a lot for the population and folks who rely on some of these things. And so, Devin, let me start back with you, and we'll start with kind of where we need to start. How are we doing with the count today?
Not great. I will say not great in the self-response category. However, at this point, the Census Bureau is reporting a 99.9% enumeration across the country, and that does include San Juan County. Let me run through the numbers here real quickly. Across the U.S., 99.9% of households have been enumerated. That means that someone has either counted them or they have responded by themselves to the census. 33.1% of those were visited by a census worker, and I don't have the self-response. 66.8% of the U.S. has responded by themselves. So better than half. It's a pretty good number as far as I'm concerned. In New Mexico, the same sort of thing. 99% of the state has been enumerated, 41.4% responding on their own, and 58.8% of people have been visited by a census worker. And we don't have specific numbers on the county level for non-response follow-up, but in our county, 48% of the county was included in the non-response follow-up. That means that either you had a post office box, so you didn't receive an invitation to respond to the census in the mail, or you lived on the Navajo Nation, or any of the other indigenous communities around this area.
Right. Okay.
They didn't receive an invitation to respond in the mail. Those of us with a street address that receive our mail at that street address rather than a P.O. box got a letter in the mail. I myself was interested in seeing how many letters I would get in the mail, and the number is like 8.
Okay.
Before I actually responded to the census, I was curious.
That was a test. That was a test that you did.
And
yes,
I got 4 visits from a census worker. I got little slips of paper in my door. Census workers were authorized to visit housing units up to 6 times, which is far more than in the past. In the past, it's been 2 times. They would get 2 visits. The information would be left at someone's door, and they would be responsible to reply to the census on their own after that.
And that's just one of the things that has been so different about this year's census compared to others because of COVID-19 and all the other things that you've been working with to try to still do the constitutional requirement of getting a census done in 2020.
Correct. Well, previous to COVID-19, the count was totally new because this year it included an online response format. The Census Bureau had the option of doing that in 2010, but they didn't because they wanted to make sure that they had all the security concerns addressed. So now with security concerns addressed, they opened it up to self-response through the internet for the first time ever in 2020. And that was great. We saw that people could start responding as early as mid-March. Letters were in the mail, and people got those mailers towards the end of March and early April. And Census Day on April 1st, unfortunately, at that point, the whole country had changed.
Right.
The face of the world had changed.
Right.
And so many of the plans that we had laid in planning ahead of time, by 18 months, we're talking intensive planning ahead of time. That was all thrown out the window, as was the Bureau's operational plan. They weren't sending people door to door, and that operation didn't resume in our area until July of this year. And so rather than being over in July, the U.S. Census was slated originally to be done by the end of July. It didn't start until July.
Right.
And there are many, many challenges that we saw this year.
No kidding. And so, but today is the day that things are going to wrap up.
Correct.
It has come from the nowhere else than the Supreme Court of this country.
Correct. Yeah, this is very fascinating in and of itself that there have been...
Fascinating's a word.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yes, sir.
It is the nicest word I could possibly think of.
Right.
This has been in the courts The Census Bureau announced their intentions to end the census by the end of October. There was a court case that...
But even before it was end of September, right? I mean, wasn't
Well,
there
correct.
a September? I mean, it's for the public. I feel for them because there's been
been
on
a lot
again,
of
off again,
confusion.
on again, and for you too.
Correct.
Putting this all together, but today is the day.
Today
there's
is the
really
day.
not going to be any more changes. So
By midnight Hawaiian time today, 11:59:59, Thursday, which is 4 a.m. New Mexico time.
okay, you figured this out. Yes, right. Oh, right.
as-
The count will stop.
That is when the count will stop. The
Okay.
online instrument will close. There will be no more enumeration on the ground. The Census Bureau seems to feel confident that they have an accurate and complete count. Even for those who haven't self-responded, they feel that the non-response follow-up paints a good picture of the current situation here in the U.S., and I'm really fascinated to see what that looks like when we see population numbers for San Juan County and the rest of the state.
Right, and so we can look online and see how we're doing. You were talking about
Correct.
those numbers before,
Yeah.
and I put them up, at least the statewide number. So we're in kind of a light blue, which I think is a good color to
That's
be in.
over 50%. Blue is
I
a
see.
good thing. That is
Okay.
over 50% on this map. As we see,
So if-
Bernalillo County has a really good response, 71% in the metro area. However, Bernalillo County doesn't grapple with problems like we have, and that is that 40% of our county doesn't have access to reliable broadband internet service.
Right.
And if you have to respond online and you don't have internet service, how exactly are you going to do that?
Right. So if I scroll over, I can see then the numbers right now in San Juan County. The self-response rate is now, as you said, above 50%, but barely 51.4.
Yes.
So, and internet, we had about a third, 36%.
Correct. So the rest of those self-responders actually did so over the phone. So we're
Right.
looking at, what's that, 14%, 15% of people called into the Census Bureau. And you can still do so at 844-330-2020. You
Okay.
can call in right now and respond to the census
Until 4 a.m.
until 4 a.m. tomorrow morning.
So you can do this.
Another fun fact about that is you don't have to know that special number, that code that they gave you. I tried it myself to just to troubleshoot. So I called and said, "What if I don't have that number anymore that's been sent to me in the mail?" And they're like, "Well, there's other ways we can look you up."
Oh, good.
So
Okay.
So, and I
I probably
have
don't
found
want to do that, but
bring your patience if you do that, because some of our friends on the Navajo Nation have 3 addresses. And I find this
Yeah.
very fascinating. I've had some people
Interesting.
stop by the office and they'll have 3 addresses. They have a P.O. box.
Mm-hmm.
They have 1.17 miles east of the Nageezi post office, and that's on their driver's license. And then they have a house number and road number. And that's what the Census Bureau is looking for. And also, fascinatingly, the Census Bureau doesn't have our county roads listed as county road. It's listed as CORD, C-O-R-D, county road. And to the Census Bureau, apparently that's CORD. And to the poor lady sitting in New York State or whatever that's answering the phone, trying to explain where CORD 7800 was in Nageezi was a challenge. So I have heard from some of our friends on the Navajo Nation who have been frustrated by their efforts to get counted, because
yeah.
Interesting.
it has not been easy. It
Right.
has not been easy.
Interesting. Okay. Well, let's look at the numbers, and then we're going to talk about how this impacts nonprofits in the area and then these families too
Yeah.
that we are talking about. So we're again at 51.4. That's below, as we can see on this graph, the 2010 self-response rate of closer to 60%.
Correct.
And so we've got some. I mean, we need to get some work to do, I guess,
Yeah,
in the last
absolutely.
14 hours or whatever the
Yeah.
math is. But,
We would need a few thousand people to respond today to get back into the self-response rate of 2010. And I pulled up, and it'll be quicker if I read these than you trying to navigate it to
Okay.
it, because last time there was a question about the response rate in the specific cities. Aztec, a 61.3 self-response rate. Bloomfield, a 57.1 self-response rate. Kirtland also with a 61% self-response rate. And Farmington wins this round. 65.6 self-response rate. And again, we see that folks in an incorporated area with access to reliable, quality broadband internet have a better ability to respond, frankly.
Right.
And so, as frustrating as that is, part of what is really great about the census is we now have updated metrics showing how important it is to have broadband internet. And frankly, we're in conversations at the county about local internet. We see that local fiber internet to serve our area. We see that Farmington Electric Utility is already in talks with the possibility of becoming an internet provider via fiber.
Right.
And so these sorts of numbers, that's exactly the whole point of the census and the census count, is to have these solid numbers so that organizations can make good decisions on where the need is, whether that need be for internet, whether that need be for the services of nonprofits such as our friends at the San Juan United Way.
Very true. And of course, you talk about the county, because that is the other hat that you wear.
Correct.
Is working for San Juan County. And so these numbers obviously get used by governments all the time, and nonprofits and others, to kind of try to figure this stuff out. And as we have learned over the last few months, 8 months to be exact, internet's really important for school. It's important for working from home. It's all these different things have been pushed onto the internet, and if you don't have reliable service, that's a big problem.
Correct.
And we're seeing it time and time again in our communities. So
Yeah, it's really fascinating how these census numbers are used on an everyday basis in everything.
Right.
When you see the sign outside of Farmington that says population 45,000, that's a census number.
Right.
These are numbers. The other thing that I found fascinating when I started learning about the census is the census count informs decisions about where chain restaurants may choose to place a location. We saw an influx of chain restaurants in the years after the last census, because at that point census data showed these companies that it was a community that they would survive and thrive in, and there was a need for their services here. And so, with increase in commerce, increase in business, we see how that affects our nonprofits. Recently, we've seen more businesses leave than join us here in San Juan County, and so that's changed the face of how nonprofits serve our area, and all of these numbers inform everything that happens in our area.
Right. Very true. Well, let's turn to our friends from the United Way to talk a little bit about what they are seeing with all that's going on and the importance of these census numbers. Cathryn Abeyta and Jennifer Johnson, give us a little bit of an idea of what you're seeing at the San Juan United Way. And again, full disclosure, I'm on the board of the San Juan United Way, so I know they're going to be able to answer this question.
Oh, shoot.
Yes.
Well, really, I just want to kind of jump on to what Devin was saying about how important the census data is to informing decisions about our local nonprofits. So as everyone knows, hopefully all your listeners know by now, that United Way is a local nonprofit in our county that we go out and we raise money from people, businesses, and anyone who will give to support the really life-changing work that's being done by our nonprofits here in our county. And that money that we raise ends up supplementing a really vast budget that they run internally. So all these nonprofits have really intricate budgets that are made up of state grants, federal grants, foundations, private funding, all kinds of different funding, but our funding gets to be kind of special in that it's private dollars that can fill gaps where that state or federal funding doesn't. And it's that state and federal funding that starts off with census data. So those federal and state funds end up making the bulk of those programs, and that ends up funding the bulk of the work then that's being done in our community. And so we just see it as such an important thing for nonprofits to care about and get involved in, because we'll never be able to make up the gaps in lost funding from census type data. the amount that's at risk is so large. Every year there's over $800 billion up for grabs that's allocated by the federal government to the states based on that census data. And then from there, it goes even further, and that's where our agencies are applying for that funding. So there's just so much at stake.
Right. And give us some idea of these nonprofits that you're talking about, of who they help. Because I think we sometimes think about, well, it's helping kids and things like that, but give us some ideas of what we're talking about. Well,
it really goes, it really is almost everything. Some of the things that I think are most critical are support services for children, foster care services, adoption services, abuse and neglect, grants, and different programs that are meant to serve as wraparound services in a community. Those come from census data. So those are Child Haven, those are our shelters, Echo Food Bank. A lot of funding is directed for domestic violence, shelters and services, abuser prevention, sexual assault prevention and treatment, and those agencies are just everywhere in our community.
Sure. Right, and they're using that money, and again, it relies on these numbers, these population numbers, to see where the service can go. And Jennifer, do you see I know you see things too in your line of work, right? When you're working with United Way about where this money can go.
Oh, absolutely. And just to sort of piggyback on what Cathryn was saying, for example, the census data is what's going to provide school lunch and breakfast programs. So something that we'll say on the campaign trail is that there are just shy of 9,000 chronically food insecure children in San Juan County alone. And so Echo Food Bank, for example, is one of the programs that United Way funds that does a backpack program to give these kids who essentially come to school for the guaranteed breakfast and lunch, because it's the only 2 meals that they know they're going to get that day, unless they sign up for this backpack program and they're identified, in which they can take home a backpack of food for them and their families over the weekend. But that's a perfect example of how we're just trying to fill that little gap, but without an accurate census count, we're not going to be able to have the breakfast and lunch part of it, which is so crucial. And so it's really just, it's a lot heavier, I think, than people realize, the gravity of what an undercount can do.
Very true, very true. And seniors, too, are part of this as well, right? I mean, there's money for senior centers, and Meals on Wheels, I think, too, is a United Way funded program. Yep. So that can be helpful as well.
Yeah, as another example on the senior angle, another source of funding that comes through United Way to the county from Congress actually is FEMA funding for emergency food and shelter. And so over the summer, our county, based on census counts, was awarded about $152,000 just for emergency food and shelter. And so we were able to grant that out with the local board to the domestic violence shelter, the children's shelter, and to Northwest New Mexico seniors who do the Meals on Wheels and are trying to keep the congregate meals alive through kind of a drive-through process. And so that is another great chunk of funding that was able to help keep those programs going because of census count.
And if I may, Scott, for every 1% undercounted, the state of New Mexico stands to lose $620 million in federal funding. Okay, that is a 1% undercount statewide. Now, if we bring that down to the county level, San Juan County stands to lose $37.7 million per 1% undercount. So if you look at the last population count of San Juan County, around 130,000, 1% of that is 1,000 people.
Right, and that's a lot. Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah, 1,000 people.
I think it's really early for math. But I'm going to go with your numbers.
1,300 people means big bucks, and what that breaks down to is,
and that's over 10 years, right, till the next census.
That's a year
per year, but that undercount sticks with us for the next 10 years.
Correct. Each person in our county is worth about $5,500 in federal funding per year over the next 10 years, and I think they've equated that to, would you like $10? Would you like $10 a day for the next 10 years? Well, yeah, absolutely.
Sure. Right.
And so would all of these
Interesting.
nonprofits and organizations that rely on this federal funding.
Exactly. And so I guess my question, Devin, I don't know if you know the answer to this, is if there is a perceived major undercount. You mentioned the nationwide numbers were at 99% or were really close. But you've told me before that New Mexico and San Juan County in particular is one of the hardest counties to count in the U.S. Census. And so if we do have an undercount that people feel is way off base from what we were expecting, is there any recourse, anything we can do, or do we have to wait till 2030?
At this
And
point,
some
we
of
have
us
to
may
wait
not be
until
here in
2030.
2030.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I don't know.
In 2010, it's estimated there was about a 1.65% undercount. It is too early for us to know, and the Census Bureau really hasn't put out information. They feel as though they have affected a complete count. I would still anticipate, if 2010 was a 1.5, I would anticipate a 2% undercount at this point, and that really doesn't even look at the Navajo Nation, because there have been further challenges on the Navajo Nation to affect a complete count. And so while there is no concrete data to say yes or no the count is accurate at this point, I would not be shocked to learn of an undercount in our area.
Interesting. Now, and we know, though, that the census, in between the major census every 10 years, they are still tracking populations.
Correct.
And they're still putting out updated numbers or estimates, right, of
Correct.
how they feel things are going. So it's not like we don't have data from a couple years ago, and we have to go all the way back to 2010. And so we should get and that's how they figure this out, right, is they kind of look at some of those estimates in the mid-years to figure out where things should be in 2020?
Correct. There are other ways, and actually there's another court case pending at the moment that would allow the Census Bureau to include tribal enrollment, CIB numbers, things of that, to make sure there is a complete count on the Navajo Nation and through other Native populations. I don't know where that court case is at the moment, but that's just another part of the Census Bureau is doing the work.
Right, of course.
But it is there are challenges mounting, and so it has been a very fascinating, and I'm sure if frustrating for us. I can't imagine
There's that word
what
again.
what the Bureau.
Yes. No, I agree. And, because you have just the army of people and volunteers and staffers that have been hired to do the work here just in San Juan County alone. And you duplicate that in every county all across our country. Mm-hmm. And those are the folks that have been, okay, you're going to work tomorrow. No, you're not. Yes, you are. No, you're not. Yes, you are. That's what we've been dealing with for the last month and a half.
Yeah, and that's another fascinating part of this is the Census Bureau intended to hire 1,200 enumerators to be going door to door and counting people in our county, and the last count
just in our county.
Correct.
1,200.
1,200.
Okay, I'm just making sure
Yeah.
I heard it, our listeners heard it. Okay.
That's correct. It was supposed to be
simmer there for a
1,200
minute.
enumerators.
Okay.
They did not have that many hired. At last count, I think it was around 300. There were enumerators being brought in from other areas who don't know the geography, who don't know the cultures, who don't know
The chords.
exactly the cords, the county roads, the two tracks,
Sure.
the third big white rock past the barking dog. Frankly, I think they probably would have been better off using postal carriers or FedEx employees.
Right.
Who know where these people are, and that was part of the deal. Is they intended the Census Bureau intended to hire people from the community to be in the community, and knew the community and knew where these people are. There is good work that did happen with the Census Bureau in enumerating group housing, and that's everything from the San Juan County Jail to retirement homes, rest homes, assisted care facilities. We don't have dorms here, but there is enumeration within dorm facilities. There is a lot of work being done, and then it was I won't say hampered, but but it was there was a challenge. There was a lot of challenge to make sure that this was a good, clean count.
Right. Well, and as you mentioned, the plan was to get things wrapped up by July. It really didn't get started till July because of all the rethinking we had to do. We, meaning you, and your committee had to do with COVID and some other ways to do this in a safe way.
Correct. And, actually, frankly, the law says that the count has to be delivered to the President and the Senate by December 31st. And that's not going to happen this year. And it's the first time in history that the census count has not been delivered to the legislative and executive branch on time. So it'll be the early part of next year. I think April is what they're targeting to get that information finalized and made public.
I see.
And I look forward to seeing what the count looks like.
And I think that was one of the arguments before the Supreme Court that decided to end the count today, was the timing to get it done as close to the end of the year as possible, or at least to get that process started. But
that's so the Supreme Court ruling earlier this week overturned another ruling that forced the Census Bureau to go through the end of October, which was the original, this second timeline.
Second new deadline.
The original amended timeline, yeah. I need Red String and Charlie Day to help me out.
Yes, right.
And so that ruling by the Supreme Court overturned the lower court's ruling, and essentially the Census Bureau could have stopped at any time, and they did elect to take those extra few days because I believe that came out late Monday. So we had Tuesday and Wednesday, and now today is the last day. That 72-hour window to retool anything that we were doing to make sure that we had the correct dates, and folks knew that this was the last chance. And this is the last chance. Under 15 hours to go, I believe, to participate in the census. 2020 census.gov, 844-330-2020. At this point, talk to somebody. 844-330-2020. They're very friendly. I've helped some folks do it, and all they're doing quite literally is reading the census form, just like the one you would have gotten in the mail. A census worker would have dropped off for you. You would have done yourself online. They are reading it for you, but they have access to a database that's going to help find your address and better classify your information so they don't have to reconfirm that later on.
Very good. Well, and again, today's the last day. If you know someone, friend, neighbor, relative who hasn't responded yet, this would be their last chance to do that. And we know just how important these numbers are when we talked about our nonprofits, when we talk about all the other agencies and programs in our community that serve the underserved and provide a lot of these resources, whether it's food or after-school programs or all the things we've been talking about this morning. So the census really works its way into all these things. Very important.
I never thought about it. I never knew. And in fact, San Juan County impaneled the Complete Count Committee before I started at San Juan County. And upon joining that committee, I learned more about the census than most people ever even knew there was about the census. And it's been a fascinating journey, and now I'm excited to see what San Juan County looks like.
We are all excited to see that, so looking forward to it. So great. Well, we are out of time, everybody, but I can't thank you enough for coming in again to talk about all the important work that all of you are doing. So thank you very much, everybody.
And thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. My guests from the San Juan United Way and the San Juan County Counts Committee talking about the 2020 census right here on KSJE. More coming up after this.
Hey y'all, I'm Chevelle Shepherd, winner of The Voice, and I'm proud to be from right here in San Juan County. The voice of this community matters in the 2020 census, and you can help shape the future of San Juan County. Just fill out the 10 simple questions and you will help secure billions of dollars to help fund our roads, schools, medical clinics, and more.
Sweeter than the tea in Tennessee.
Make sure you're counted and visit 2020